Toronto billionaire couple was found dead in the basement of their North Toronto home in December 2017. And despite an ongoing investigation, the case remains unsolved. No killer has been found, no arrests have been made.
We've discovered 2 bodies of people inside a home.
Both Honey and Barry Sherman were in fact targeted.
We are not currently seeking or looking for an outstanding suspect.
On the morning of December 15, 2017, a real estate agent named Elise Stern arrived at a large home on Old Colony Road in North York, Toronto. The house was listed for sale at 6.9 million Canadian dollars. She was there to show it to prospective buyers. She led them through the main floor, the kitchen, the living areas, then down to the basement where the home had an indoor swimming pool. The room was dark, but as her eyes adjusted, she noticed something on the far side of the pool. 2 figures side by side slumped against the pool railing, both fully clothed, both with belts looped around their necks, fastened to the railing, holding them in a strange, semi-seated position on the floor. She later told investigators it looked like they were doing some kind of yoga. They had been dead for approximately 36 hours. The victims were Barry Sherman, 75, the founder and chairman of Apotex, Canada's largest generic pharmaceutical company and one of the wealthiest men in the country, and Honey Sherman, 70, his wife of 46 years, a prominent philanthropist beloved in Toronto's Jewish community. Nothing had been stolen. There were no signs of forced entry, no valuables disturbed. Whoever killed them had come in, killed them, staged their bodies, and walked out, and nobody saw a thing. To understand why this case is so extraordinary, you need to understand who Barry Sherman was. He was born in Toronto in 1942. He earned a doctorate in engineering from MIT. He took over his late uncle's small pharmaceutical company in 1967 and spent the next 5 years turning it around before selling it and using the proceeds to found Apotex in 1974. Apotex's business model was brutally simple and enormously effective. Barry's team would identify a brand-name drug, challenge its patent in court, wait for it to expire, and then flood the market with a cheaper generic version. It made him billions. It also made him one of the most litigious men in Canada. At any given time, Apotex was involved in hundreds of simultaneous lawsuits. Barry loved to fight, and he fought everyone. He once said to a journalist when asked about his enemies in the pharmaceutical industry, "The thought once came to my mind, why didn't they just hire someone to knock me off?" He was worth an estimated 5 to 10 billion Canadian dollars at the time of his death. Honey was everything Barry was not, publicly. Warm, gregarious, social. The daughter of 2 Polish Holocaust survivors, she devoted her life to philanthropy and became the unofficial heart of Toronto's Jewish community. She sat on the boards of hospitals and charities. She organized fundraisers. She had buildings named after her. Together, they had donated a record $50 million to the United Jewish Appeal alone. They had hosted Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at a Liberal Party fundraiser in 2015. On the evening of December 13th, the night investigators believed they were killed, Barry and Honey had met with architects to discuss plans for a new $30 million home they were building, closer to their children and grandchildren. They were planning the future, right up until they weren't. The day after the bodies were found, leaks from inside the Toronto Police Service reached the media. The deaths appeared to be a murder-suicide. The reaction from everyone who knew the Shermans was immediate and furious. Barry had met with architects the night he died. He was in the middle of demanding repayment of $50 to $60 million in personal loans he had extended to family members. He had big plans, big fights, big business still in motion. Honey had just recovered from cancer treatment and was busy organizing charity events. People who knew them said the idea of suicide for either of them, let alone both, was not just wrong, it was offensive. The family acted fast. They hired Brian Greenspan, one of Canada's most prominent criminal lawyers. They assembled a team of former homicide detectives to run a parallel private investigation. And they hired Dr. David Chiasson, Ontario's former chief forensic pathologist. to conduct a second autopsy. What Chiasson found changed everything. The Shermans' hands had been bound before death. No restraints were found at the scene, meaning whoever killed them had taken everything with them when they left. The belt and railing arrangement was not how they died. It was how their killer had posed them afterward. They had been strangled by a third party, and their bodies had been deliberately staged. Toronto police declined the invitation to observe the second autopsy. 5 weeks after the murders, and only after the Toronto Star published the findings on its front page, did police finally call Dr. Chiasson directly. The junior police pathologist reviewed the findings. "Yes, I concur," he said. In January 2018, 6 weeks after the discovery, Toronto police held a press conference and officially declared the Sherman deaths a targeted double homicide.
We have sufficient evidence to describe this as a double homicide investigation.
6 weeks. In what would become the highest-profile murder investigation in Canadian history, the first 6 weeks had been spent chasing the wrong theory entirely. Investigators pulled security footage from cameras across the neighborhood surrounding the Sherman home. They identified everyone they could see, every pedestrian, every driver, every neighbor walking a dog. One by one, they tracked each person down, interviewed them, and eliminated them from the investigation. Except one. On December 13, 2017, a single individual was captured on a neighborhood security camera walking near the Sherman home. The footage is 22 seconds long. The figure walks with a distinctive gait, kicking up their right foot slightly with every step. Their height is estimated at between 5'6" and 5'9". Their gender, race, and facial features cannot be determined. Toronto police held a press conference in December 2021, 4 years after the murders, and released the clip publicly for the first time. Detective Sergeant Brandon Price told reporters the suspect had spent a very suspicious amount of time in the immediate area of the Sherman home around the time of the murders. Of all the people captured on neighborhood cameras that night, this was the only person they had been unable to identify and eliminate. "This individual's actions are highly suspicious," Price said. "Based on this evidence, we are classifying this individual as a suspect." Hundreds of tips came in after the release. None led to an identification. This is where the case becomes almost overwhelming in its complexity. Barry Sherman had enemies the way most people have acquaintances. His pharmaceutical empire ran on aggressive patent challenges and cutthroat litigation. His own cousins spent years in court trying to claim a share of Apotex, arguing they had been cheated out of their inheritance. A judge dismissed their claim just months before the murders. Barry also had a $580 million judgment against Apotex pending at the time of his death. He was scrambling to secure liquidity. He had been demanding repayment of tens of millions in personal loans from family members in the weeks before he died. And then there was the political angle. Weeks before the murders, the federal lobbying commissioner had launched a formal investigation into Barry over fundraising events he had organized for Prime Minister Trudeau. Barry had connections at the highest levels of Canadian government. He also had the kind of business dealings that those connections might have found useful to keep private. The inside job theory has never gone away either. There was no forced entry. The home had a sophisticated security system. The killer navigated it without triggering anything and left without being captured on the home's own cameras. Someone either had access, a code, a key, intimate knowledge of the property, or was let inside willingly. The lead investigator on the case is now a single detective. As of 2025, he was reported to be using AI technology for the first time to help process the enormous volume of evidence. The family demolished the old Colony Road mansion years ago. The private investigation team has wound down. The reward stands at 35 million Canadian dollars. Nobody has come forward. There is a detail about this case that I keep returning to. On the night of December 13, 2017, Barry and Honey Sherman met with architects to discuss the plans for their new home. They were moving closer to their children. They wanted more time with their grandchildren. They were excited about the future. A few hours later, they were dead. Whoever killed them knew where they lived, knew how to get in, knew how to avoid the cameras, knew to take the restraints with them when they left, and knew how to pose two bodies in a way that initially fooled police into thinking they were looking at a tragic domestic death. This was not impulsive. This was not random. This was planned. The most sophisticated investigative resources in Canada have spent 8 years on this case. Over 250 witness interviews, more than 1,000 tips, 22 seconds of surveillance footage showing a person whose identity nobody can confirm. Barry Sherman once joked about why his competitors hadn't already had him killed. Someone eventually did, and they have never been found. If you have any information about the murders of Barry and Honey Sherman, the Toronto Police Homicide Tip Line is 416-808-7400. Crime Stoppers can be reached anonymously at 1-800-222-8477. The reward is 35 million Canadian dollars. Barry Sherman, born February 25, 1942, died December 13, 2017, Toronto, Canada. Honey Sherman, born April 5, 1947, died December 13, 2017, Toronto, Canada. They were building a new home for their grandchildren the night they were killed.